In this video, I'm going to be discussing the final 3 episodes of Season 1. When it comes to the grandparents, typically Richard is paired off with Rory and Emily is paired off with Lorelai. However, here we get to see a rare example of Emily and Rory together, as Rory decides to experiment and see if taking Emily to Stars Hollow in order to track down a piece of antiquity to match her collection.
Maybe you should come to Stars Hollow and I'll take you there. Like Saturday. You can come see the town.
I'm working.
No one's asking you to do anything, Lorelai. This is between Rory and me.
In doing so, Rory hopes that this will break some of the ice between Emily and Lorelai, as she'd be able to see just how great their lives are. And, surprisingly, it starts off pretty successfully, as Emily not only becomes comfortable enough with Stars Hollow to start wearing trainers,
Or in jogging shoes. What's up, working girl?
but she even starts getting on with the likes of Mrs. Kim and Michelle. However, things sadly take a turn for the worse when Rory decides to show them the old shed outside the Independence.
The tool shed? No, this is where we used to live. What? Right when Mom and I moved here, this was our apartment.
While to Rory this shed has a lot of sentimental value to it, Emily doesn't really see it that way.
Mom, I was very young, and I was very unhappy, and I needed to be someplace that wasn't here.
You had to take that little girl away. That was bad enough. But to that? To live there in a shed like a hobo?
We do get a little bit of hope that she is trying to better herself by creating a room at their home specifically for Rory, and unlike the surprise birthday party, actually seeks Rory's opinion and advice on it before revealing it. I've seen this sort of situation in real life where relationships between families have sort of broken down and the parent and child figures never really make peace with each other. However, the grandparent will try and live vicariously through the grandchild and putting as much effort in as possible to avoid making the same mistakes with them, providing Rory with a place to go and making her feel as welcome as possible, which comes to play quite quicker than you'd think.
Would it be okay if I stay here tonight?
Oh, well, of course.
You can stay here as long as you want.
Thanks.
As Lorelai and Rory end up having a fight significant enough for her to decide to instead go to Richard and Emily rather than going back home. And what was the fight about? Well, on the one hand, she ends up finding out that Lorelai and Max have been seeing each other again.
You didn't know anything about this, did you? Well, then the look on your face makes perfect sense now. Sure, your mom was going to tell you soon.
Which is something I'll come back to in a minute, but also we get to see more of her aftermath dealing with life without Dean. It leads to Lorelai confronting Dean about his behaviour, only for him to reveal the whole issue with Rory not saying I love you back to him.
I just want to tell you that I think you are scum.
I say I love you, and she just sits there, and I'm the jerk.
This is another situation where I find this whole breakup really bizarre. Dean is sort of written and portrayed to be sort of like this innocent party victim to Rory's actions, but as far as we can tell, he is still the one who ended the relationship. I think if they'd slightly retooled it to have not only Rory reject the idea of saying I love you, but also being the one who ends the relationship, I think it would have made a bit more sense. As is here, it kind of feels like Rory is sort of pressured into feeling guilty about not being ready to say I love you. It does make their reunion in the final episode feel a tad uncomfortable.
Some of us will never be able to say what we're thinking or what we want other people to know that we're thinking, so we'll never get the chance to make things right again, ever. Stop!
Why?
Because I love you, you idiot!
But they do indeed get back together, and the good news is it finally gives Tristan the motivation to take a step back. While their relationship restarts, another one comes to an end, that being Luke and Rachel. I think it's quite interesting that the arc across these episodes is very much presenting their situation as having a third wheel, but who the third wheel is in the relationship kind of alternates across the episodes, as Rachel actually forms a pretty strong friendship with Lorelai, and I really appreciate that fact that they're not rivals and they're not really aggressive with each other. In fact, Rachel becomes really significant in Lorelai's life, as she's the one who makes her aware, or at least makes her re-aware, of the abandoned property, the Dragonfly, which Lorelai and Suki feel would be the perfect location for their own inn that they want to open. So Rachel offers a major part of the shift in the status quo. Rachel decides ultimately that she is the third wheel and makes the decision to take herself out of the equation.
Another guy?
No.
Then what?
It's another girl.
What? You don't mean... She and I are just friends. I told you that 1,000 times.
No. You told it to me once.
And she gives him the freedom to make the decision to be with the person he actually wants to be with. I'm kind of sad that Rachel leaves so soon, as on this rewatch I found her to be such a really likeable and engaging character.
I'll miss you.
Sadly, Luke isn't able to confess his feelings to Lorelai, at least not this season, as we go back to the relationship between Lorelai and Max. With their argument resolved, Lorelai and Rory enjoy having Max back in their life. Now initially, it's clear that they're enjoying being back together and showing off their playful dynamic.
And where are you?
I am in the teacher's lounge.
What are you wearing?
Nothing.
You must be very popular.
And chilly.
However, when he finds out that not only did Lorelai not tell Rory about the two of them getting back together, she didn't really tell anyone. So it soon becomes clear that she's more looking for a casual relationship with Max, while he's looking for something a bit more serious and long term. Which is why he makes the decision to propose. Now, unlike Dean, I appreciate the fact that it was at least an open-ended proposal, where he gave her the space and time to actually think about her answer, though the decision to accompany the proposal with 1,000 daisies will end up having its own problems in Season 2. But I'll talk about that in the next video, and so ends Season 1 of Gilmore Girls. Looking back on the first season, it's really grown on me since my first initial viewing of it. I think some of the issues regarding the breakups and the awkward, traditional teen drama cliches kind of got the better of me, though I do feel I've exaggerated them in the back of my head when I've thought back on Season 1, mostly down to the fact that it kind of gets worse in like Season 6 and 7, so retroactively it made me more nervous to revisit these ideas, but they're done so well here. I think a lot of the characters are really well defined here, though some changes are going to be made in the future seasons. I hope you enjoyed this retrospective so far. If you haven't already, I'd greatly appreciate it if you supported the channel by hitting subscribe, turning on notifications, liking, commenting. You can find and follow me on social media at the links here, and I'll see you in the next video where we start Season 2.
As a child, your mother had an unusually large head.
The best thing about it was that she would tell me, constantly. My first complete sentence was, "Big head, want Dolly."